G'day and welcome back for more Survival Impossible. And today marks the start of the 52nd week of Survival Impossible. This is the completion of 1 year if you ignore the calendar. You just go by how many weeks I've been in here. Which is kind of pretty cool. I'm quite excited for what I've got to do today and what I'm going to show off right at the end of this episode, which will be the completion time-lapse of my first year here on Omicron. And hopefully a feeling of getting somewhat close to completion of this base, or at least completion of all the critical parts of the base, so that I can use this as a platform for exploring the rest of this system. Because that's what I want the second year in Survival Impossible to be. I want it to be up there, getting chased around by Reavers, running back here, collecting more ammunition, going back up out there, and fighting again. Because as far as I'm aware, so far, the only place that I've got magnesium is right here on Omicron. So this base is always going to be important to me because it's where I'm going to get my weapons from. Which is kind of cool. It means that I'll always be able to come back here, which means all of the time spent decorating it will get shown off for a long time to come, which is what I want. Now, the thing to start off today is going to be building the very, very long conveyor line down to where the aircraft facility will be, sort of like the airport for this base. So I guess I should get going, and I'm hoping this time to make better use of the crane to speed this process up. As last time, when I was building this conveyor line across to the grinding hut, that took a lot of time because of the amount of stuff arounds I had with this one blowing up until I finally figured out how I was supposed to do this correctly. So I'm hoping that this time will be a little bit smoother, and therefore a lot quicker. What I'm trying to decide at the moment is if I come off the side of this building and go down, which starts me as close as possible, or if I start back on the production facility. But I think I like the idea of coming off here. I'm also hoping to remember, and I'm pretty sure I will, to instead of putting junctions on top of the towers, I'm going to put small cargo containers. Although that makes the inventory and stuff on the base quite challenging to work through, it'll be handy to have since I'll then have access to cargo as I move down. So I won't have to bring stuff in any vehicle to get access back to the main cargo system, which I think that's probably going to be the thing that saves me the most time of all. I need to try to remember with the Splitsie that when I use it, I should be reversing downhill, as that's the most stable position for it to be, because I know the weight's on the front pulling it, keeping it stable rather than tipping it forward. And here we go, first cargo container on the first section. Now, because I can run up here and climb down off the grinder building, I could easily just keep building along, and then once I get to the end of the line and I've finished the whole run, I can then add the turbines and the turrets and things coming back or forward from each of these cargo containers. What I'm thinking I might do is potentially even leave the cargo container pillars without any sort of turret or turbine on them and build ladders up to them, because that way I should be able to climb up those ladders and repair stuff from each of them with it should save a fair bit of time. Although I do have the Splitsie, so I may not even need to do that. And I am losing an opportunity to have more power production and more guns. I'll have to think about that one as I go, but maybe I'll do a mix of each. So my plan this time around is actually to build each segment and each pillar, and then just use the hinge that they're attached to move them out of the way, and then place down my base block and then merge them back in place. Which should work safely, assuming I build enough on the base to counteract the whole "this grid is going to become mobile while it's in the voxels" problem that I was running into last time. Get it in place, then I go jump down off here, well, not jump, but walk down off here, and then I'll place my bottom bit. And I'm just going to keep working along through this, and hopefully over the course of the night get most of it done, since I'd really like to get a whole bunch of the work done on the air facility today in this episode. So that's going to happen regardless of how long this takes. There we go. Oh. That wasn't happy for a second. Oh, that seems quite unhappy. That's annoying. Oh no, it's settled down. No, it hasn't. As soon as I get close, that starts rattling around. Dang it, I've placed it too close. This isn't going to work. Let's detach. Yeah. I'm too close. Drat. You have to do all this again. It's always better to stretch the hinges than it is to compress them. Is this happy now? This looks happy now. Yeah, that's much better. Good. Need to be more careful of that little issue in the future. Still, one link done. Many more to go. It is so useful having cargo containers along the way. Being able to come up here, just grab the parts, produce them, weld it up. Saves a huge amount of time. Oopsie. If you're wondering why my health was back at 70, there's your explanation. Just thought of another little thing that might be handy to put on these towers, just even temporarily, a passenger seat, so I can get some power. I just hope that when I get off the chair, I don't get ejected off the tower. I shouldn't, but you never know. Yeah, all good. Just got to make sure that wherever you get on, it's clear to get off again, and you should get out of the chair the same spot as you got into it. But that's going to be really handy, because now I can refill my oxygen and refill my power without getting down from here. Even though that's exactly what I have to do in a moment, because I need to build the bottom of this tower. If this attaches, I have then completed this link. Yes! Well, I mean, I've linked this long line of conveyors all the way back to the base. Oh, man. Now I just got to weld this up and get access to this cargo container, and then I can start work on these new hangar bays and all of this airfield down here without having to go anywhere. Which is exactly what I was hoping to get done. This was a lot of work. Though surprisingly not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. Time consuming, yes, but I've actually got a reasonable sort of... what's the word I'm looking for? A reasonable rhythm, I guess? But an approach that works for getting these things locked to the ground. I'm getting better at placing the blocks underneath so that it doesn't kind of pull or twist things once the two grids merge. I can't imagine how expensive this thing has been to build. I've probably used up an awful lot of iron and nickel. I've also been using merge blocks the whole way along. It turned out that they were much easier to work with than weld pads because I could keep everything in its current position, as in the position I wanted it to be at the end, when the merge blocks were placed and when the merge blocks merged. Whereas with the weld pads, I'd have to swing it out of the way, build the weld pads, swing it back into place, and let them lock, which just made life a bit harder. So I went for the more expensive but easier option of using the merge blocks the whole way along. And Splitsie has been doing double duty, having to help me get the access to actually place the blocks and weld up the blocks that I can't reach from the ground or from walking along the top here. There we go. Cargo access. I don't like the idea of jumping down there. I'm going to run all the way around and build some stairs up to that cargo. Then build this pylon, and then the line is complete. With this last link, the reason this one was floating was like with when I built this to the grinding hut. I needed to be able to move this point sideways, left and right to allow me to have large grid cargo conveyor systems the whole way. Because that allowed me to give that extra little bit of flex so that I could adjust the position of the final hinge down here to line up nice and properly to everything else. Whereas if I built this pylon, I would have had to use some other method, like using small grid conveyors, so that I could get that adjustable length or a piston even, but a piston in these links I think would look quite ugly. So I didn't want to do it. I noticed when I was sitting down on the chairs that I've scattered along this conveyor line that my power usage is actually exceeding my power generation, even on this part of the base. So before I start working on the aerodrome, I might actually pop down a couple of wind turbines along here. So if we have a look, sit in... Oh, actually, now that we've got solar power... Yeah, it's saying depleted. I think even if I put one or two turbines down, it should be enough to make a difference here. I have an idea. I think that looks okay. It's not ideal because I was hoping to get that bit of catwalk to stick out further, but then when I started sticking out further, it started looking worse, and I just wasn't happy. But I think with the little railing sticking out off one side, it kind of sort of looks okay from the ground, maybe? I don't know. What I wanted to make was something that allowed me to get all the way up here and up onto these bits, even with this turret here. And this pretty much works, albeit it does stop me from getting that way. But at least I can walk along part of this thing, even with this turret intact. And it's very hard to place these turrets and these turbines because they take up that 3x3 area. And that means placing one up here, I wouldn't have had a way down unless I built something like this to get down. Or unless I kind of started at one end and worked my way gradually back to a spot where I actually did have an exit. Which is obviously, you know, not painting yourself into a corner. But I wanted to try something else, and I think definitely from a distance this will look alright, because it just looks like a bit of scaffolding around the tower and where the turret is. But all in all, I think I'm okay with it. I don't think I need to mess around with it more. This oddly, I think, works out alright, where I've got the full width stairs, which I apparently failed to finish, going into the half width stairs with the turnabout. I don't mind that look. Oddly. I think it worked out alright. I do wonder whether it would have been better if I'd put the graded half stairs on the outside. But then it would have, yeah, it would have looked... I think it looks better on that side. Because this platform up here would have looked weirder with the stairs on the outside. Cool. That's all I'm going to mess around with on that. I might put some lights on these towers though, the ones that don't yet have them, because it's going to get dark in not too long, and I like these being lit up. It's a kind of cool chain running up the hill. One thing I really love this conveyor system for, that I hadn't quite thought about before, is that it's allowed me to build a base that I'm happy with aesthetically, that is really spread out. I never really liked building spread out bases because I wanted to have the conveyor systems hooked up, but I hated that you had to have step or other like right angled conveyor lines between all the buildings, so you ended up with either tunneling under the ground to hide them completely, or just not doing, or building really close so that they weren't very long. And this is probably going to be something I use a fair bit whenever I'm building a base that I want to have a particular aesthetic for, because it's going to allow me to do that without any real limitations. The only limitations is my patience for how long I'm going to spend building the dang things. Since that last bit of footage, quite a lot has happened here on Omicron. I have had a stream on Twitch where I went and edited a whole bunch of voxels. You can actually see a little bit of that over on the left where that trail leads off in the snow. I've actually done a whole lot of recorded building that I can't use because the recording ended up being one frame every 2 to 3 seconds. So it's totally unwatchable. It's horrid. So I've had to scrap that whole bit of recording. So I'm going to do this a bit differently. Instead of showing you as I go, I'm going to show you what I've done. And then once I'm done showing you all the things that have changed around this base and all the things I'm really quite proud of that I've done since the last little bit of footage, I'm going to start the time lapse. The epic 1 year time lapse, which I am so looking forward to sharing. But let's get on to the changes. So yeah, that trail, but I think more impressive than that is this. Look at the Arboretum. Now it looks like a little oasis in the middle of a frozen desert. Now it feels like a tranquil space. And with the help of a little mod by Ufold, it has these little glowing fireflies floating around that I think add a lot to the tranquility of this space. It adds so much to the environment to just be able to sit here and watch them moving around and then blinking out. It's really quite cool. I am so happy with how this has come together. This is the vision I had of the Arboretum when I set out building this. This is that little pocket of home so far away from home. Really happy with it. If you couldn't tell, by the way, I was talking about it. Let's go have a look at some of the other voxel changes that I've made in that stream. Don't need to close that door. Although, I suppose you could argue don't want to let the bugs in. I have adequate food, water, and oxygen. Oh no! Ah, Splitsie. What are you doing? So I've built a bunch of different little trails around the base, including vehicle ones, as well as walking ones. In my head, I originally planned to sync these into the voxels, but there's a very good reason not to do that, which is my vehicles have variable wheelbases. They are different widths, and also it's much better to drive on generated voxel than it is on voxel hands placed stuff. It's much smoother, much easier, so although the look isn't quite as good, I think it still works quite nicely. When you walk around here and you have a look, and then you've got these little snow drifts, the piles of snow outside the parking area, which is also straight generated voxel. I'm really quite happy with how this came together. And then the dugout path between the production facility, as you walk up there, down to these stairs, which it was really nice being able to dig out perfectly to the bottom of them so the railings don't embed into the voxels. I think it ends up looking so much nicer. And then wandering down here, a little bit of a snowdrift in the window. There's snowdrifts all the way around these two buildings. Should probably repair that damage at some point. So it continues right around the other side as well. And same with these stairs, I dug them out mostly, just to make them feel a bit more right. This voxel editing stuff, the surface that I've used here is one of the surfaces from Triton, because it ended up looking the best as a sort of a gravel surface. And I've even done some of the stuff around the grinder tower, the grinder building as well. But the big things, you already know about the conveyor line down to the aerodrome down there, but let's take the absconder out. And let's drive down to the aerodrome to see what I've done down there. Obviously going to have to drive slowly so that my wheels don't pop. You can see just off to the left there a little bit of the first hangar, which is mostly complete. I'm probably going to end up using the absconder as my personal mobility vehicle, I guess. It's going to be my way of moving between the two segments of the base because it doesn't have a lot of purpose otherwise. And it's a cool vehicle. Why wouldn't I want to drive around in this? Will mean that I'll have to remember to keep recharging it though. So, here we have the first of the hangars. And I decided for a reconceptualization. Jeez, that sounds like salesperson speak. You know, corporate speak sort of rubbish. But yeah, anyway, I decided to change up my plans and go for multiples of these buildings. I really just want to have 2 of them so that they feel a bit like an aerodrome. And then my plan for the rest of this is to have sort of a control tower, and then next to the control tower a bit of a crane tower. So when the panini comes into land, it'll just land in the open here, but then that crane tower will have a conveyor line on it, which I can move into position, lock onto the panini, so then I can have all that fuel moving in and out and that sort of stuff without having to have a specific landing spot for the panini. It should give me the flexibility I need to use this open, not particularly flat, but flat enough space for the panini to land on, which I think is going to work out much, much better. The first hangar, it is my canary bird cage, I guess. I've set up 4 small grid connectors mounted on advanced rotors. Those advanced rotors are piped up through to the rest of the conveyor system, so once these get welded up, they will be able to drag ammunition into them straight away. And my plan originally had been to set up a specific large printer to print these drones off to build them quickly. What I discovered as I was going along, though, was given the scale of this structure, trying to do that was going to be ugly. It wasn't going to end up good at all. It was just going to be awful. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is another crane arm. What I want to set up is probably mounted off a conveyor and rotor somewhere here, a collapsible crane arm that can reach each of these spots and can kind of move the welder head around the different bits so that I can hopefully reasonably quickly build them up. And I'm not too worried about how quick that is, because if I'm using more than 4 canaries in a single battle, I probably should give up. I probably should stop and think and go, is this worth it? Should I stop? Should I come up with a new tactic? Should I change my approach here? And the answer to that is almost certainly going to be yes. Stop throwing canaries at the wall. It's not working. Come up with something new. So I figure 4 should be plenty to have in reserve, and then I can just calmly build them back up if I lose a couple during a battle. That's the idea. And I think it'll be nice having a fold-away crane over here. I could put a couple of oxygen tanks or hydrogen tanks in here, probably hydrogen. The small large grid hydrogen tanks, because they're 2x1, so they'll fit on these blocks here. And that'll start building up a bit of hydrogen storage down here, while also giving some nice decorative touches to this hangar. I ended up, for the moment, leaving that glass unbuilt up there. I'm vaguely tempted to leave it that way, but I will probably end up welding them up. But I think I need to go and mine some more silicon before I have enough to do that. Or set up the launch air base to launch me down a full load of silicon. And I'm actually leaning towards that option because that'll kind of be cool. And it'll be kind of cool to test launching a silicon drop. And doing that from here without actually ever setting foot on the launch air base. Because I should be able to do that if I set up a new drop pod blueprint thing as well, adding more parachutes to it, because that's what I want to do. More parachutes, no camera, just a beacon, and I should be able to hopefully track that and even wait for it as it comes down, because I really want to be down on the planet when a drop is coming in. I think that'll be seriously cool. So that's something I'm probably going to do before getting onto that glass, because there'll be a fair bit and more in this one, and then obviously more glass for the control tower. Nowhere near the amount of glass for the Arboretum, but still, moderate amount, and I think it'll be fun. I got totally off track there, but still, excited. So, my thinking is, once this aerodrome is done, and I feel like I could get this done in probably 2 weeks, depending on how distracted I get by having some more canaries, and how many cargo ships I want to go out and shoot down. I feel like I could be getting to work on that panini and finishing it up in relatively good time. Then, this is where I think things are going to get exciting. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, I want to go to space. I want to shake the bonds of Omicron, use the magnesium that's over in the hills way over there, use this as an ammunition resupply, rebuild, repair sort of facility, but then go out there, get to the planets up there, get to that moon that's up there that you can see just above the gas giant. I want to get to all of these places, but here's where I'm hoping all of you can help me out. I want to do something interesting and different on each of those planets. Something that'd take me a few weeks to build, or something that'd take me a few weeks to achieve. Some sort of goal for each and every planet. I think there are about 6 out there, but we can always add more. But that's what I want this next year in Survival Impossible to be. I want to explore. And I want to build with specific missions and aims in mind. The first mission, just to give you an example of the sort of thing I'm thinking of, is I want to get a probe onto the surface of the gas giant. Which sounds simple, until you realize the gas giant is huge. It's 500 kilometers in diameter. That means that its gravity well is very, very deep. So if I'm going to be able to get a probe onto the surface, it has to either be laser antenna connected so that it has the range, or I'm going to need relays, and I'm going to have to find asteroids that are within the gravity well that are close enough to the surface. And I don't think they exist. So I think I'm going to need to find somewhere in this system that has gold so that I can build laser antenna and then I can send something down there. So that kind of, those sorts of missions are what I'm thinking. So if you've got any ideas like that, let me know, because I want to put together a list of them and I want to have that as my big prominent to-do list for 2021 on Omicron. Because I think that's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great having some specific goals in mind for each of those planetary bodies. I think from here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I point 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. And I know there's more than that out there. So there's plenty of stuff to do. And it's going to take a whole lot of time to do, knowing me. But hopefully it'll drive me to move forward even more so than my desire to get some silver, so that I can stop being at 70 health all the time. Next time, I'm going to hopefully get at least halfway done on this aerodrome, so that it's kind of finishing touches the following week. But for now, it's been a year, so let's look back at 1 year on Omicron. So for now, enjoy the time lapse.
Energy.
And there's all that and plenty more to come. And I will see you then. Oh! Oh man, this could be really, really bad. This could be really bad. Oh no, giant cliffside, bad. Come on. Well, I really don't know if I'm going to make this. I'm slightly panicking. No, 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 no. No, the wheels. The wheels. It's the wheels' fault. Ah. And my stamina's gonna run out too. Please, 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 please. Please work. What have I done? I don't remember how quickly I lose my health. Oh great, and there's a wasp inbound, potentially. I'm thirsty and I'm about to hit my stamina. No! No, why does there have to be a giant valley? No! I'm so close! $54 health, 53 health. Less than 500 meters. 49. Oh, my stamina's about to run out again. This is too tight! Oh, I haven't been in this much pressure for so long. Oh, come on. No, I'm not gonna make it. No! Oh, it's so close!